Welcome to Navigating Advocacy, the true crime podcast that goes beyond storytelling to ignite change and seek justice. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Whitney. As true crime enthusiasts turned passionate advocates, we've seen the power of storytelling raise awareness about unsolved crimes and bring hope to victims and their families. We hope to inspire action and promote positive change within the true crime community.
Our mission is simple. We provide a platform for victims and their families to share their stories, to be heard, and find solidarity. But we don't stop there. We offer practical guidance to our listeners on how they can actively make a difference in their own communities.
In each episode, we'll discuss a different unsolved case. We'll examine the details, highlight potential leads, and strive to spark new interests that may help advance the investigation. Our goal is to reignite hope and ultimately bring justice where it's long overdue.
But this podcast is about more than just a conversation. It's about building a community of like-minded individuals who share a common purpose, making a real difference in the fight for justice. Whether you're a seasoned true crime fan or new to the genre, we invite you to join us on this journey of discovery and advocacy.
Together, we can create a wave of change. We're here to empower you to also become advocates for change, no matter where or who you are. We are Navigating Advocacy.
We discuss topics that may be sensitive to listeners. Discretion is advised. We are navigating advocacy in Oregon. This week's unsolved missing person case is pretty well known. However, I just knew the basics and that was about it. So researching this one has been interesting, but heartbreaking all at the same time. We will be diving into the case of Kyron Horman.
I'm so excited you picked this case because I've heard it over and over, but I've never even read an article about it. So I'm excited to hear about it.
That's pretty much how I was. I knew the basics. I knew he was a little boy, had gone missing from school, something about a science fair, and then that pretty much summed up what I had known about it. But first, Portland, Oregon is where Kyron went missing, and it is the largest city in Oregon. I honestly expected the crime rate to be worse in 2010 in this city. That was not the case. In that year, at least, it was not too bad. They had 22 murders, which I feel is pretty decent for a large populated city. However, today, Portland is 94% more dangerous than other U.S. cities. The murder rate increased dramatically between 2011 and 2021, and it jumped 46% just in that one decade.
Wow.
Yes, huge jump. I went to Portland years ago for a wedding, and it is beautiful. Definitely a great place if you are an outdoorsy type. And something I found strange, or maybe not strange, but different, was regular people are not allowed to pump their own gas. They have attendants for that.
Do they still have it? Or I thought it changed.
When I went there about 6 years ago, they had it. So I don't know if it has changed since 6-7 years ago.
I went not long ago. Well, I guess it's probably been about the same amount of time. Time flies these days. And
yes,
it was the same thing. You could not pump your gas because we had a rental car at the time, and same, you couldn't pump your gas or whatever. And it was very strange. But I thought since then they had some sort of legislative change to where they did away with that. But maybe I'm wrong.
It's a possibility. I didn't even look it up. I just thought it was so strange. Definitely took some getting used to. I was only there for a few days. Kyron and his family lived on the outskirts of Portland in a quiet suburb. Kyron Richard Horman was born September 9th of 2002 to parents Kyron Horman and Desiree Young. The couple were not together very long and actually divorced while Desiree was still pregnant with Kyron. Kane, who was a software engineer at the Intel company, was apparently cheating on his pregnant wife. Desiree found out because Kane's best friend had called her and told her what her husband was up to. She actually tried to stay for a while and make it work, considering she was pregnant with his child, but at the end of the day, she had to do what was best for her. Once Kyron was born, the couple shared custody of their little boy, but Desiree ended up getting pretty sick with kidney failure. And because of her ongoing medical issues, Kane would end up keeping Kyron full-time. Desiree would go to Canada to receive her medical treatments for a few months, and then she was in massive debt because of this. So she had to move back in with her parents, and essentially Kane kept Kyron full-time. By this time, Kane was already seeing another woman named Terry. The two had met at a restaurant and had a lot in common. Desiree believes that they met and started seeing each other while she and Kane were still married, so she really never liked Terry. For timeline's sake, Kyron was born in September of 2002, and Kane and Terry met in 2001. But they always said that they did not start anything romantic until after Kane and Desiree called it quits. Terry and Kane would not get married until 2007. Terry was very much the person raising Kyron day in and day out, since he was an infant while Kane worked and Desiree dealt with her medical issues. Terry had a son named James from a previous marriage, and Terry and Kane would have a daughter, Kiara, in 2008. So we had these 3 children living under the Horman household in this blended family. That's just a quick background on all the family dynamics before we get into the day Kyron vanished. The investigation was deemed the largest criminal investigation in Oregon history. It is still an ongoing investigation to this day. Terry, by all counts, was a good stepmother to Kyron. She taught him sign language when he was a baby. She went to school to be a teacher and apparently loved kids. She was the one that realized Kyron could not see very well, and she was the advocate for getting him glasses and getting testing done. As I said before, she was Kyron's primary caregiver. She's the one that would drive him to school, make his food, help him with his homework every day. On June 4th of 2010, Terry loaded Kyron and Kiara in her husband's truck to drive Kyron to school at Skyline Elementary near Forest Park, Oregon. They took the truck on this particular day because Kyron had a science fair project that was one of those trifold boards, and it wouldn't fit in Terry's smaller car. So they drove the truck so that he was able to turn in his project. The school was open to all parents that day and visitors because of the science fair. The family walked in together to see Kyron's display along with the other students. Terry would state she left the school around 8:45 a.m. when she walked Kyron to his classroom. And essentially, this school has 2 floors, and there's 2 sets of stairs. And the last time she saw Kyron, in her statement, is Kyron ran up one set of stairs, and she walked up the other ones because she had baby Kiara in the diaper bag, so she was a bit slower than Kyron was. She gets to the top of the stairs. She sees Kyron walking into his classroom at the end of the hall. She walks back down the stairs and out the door. That is what she states is her last time ever seeing Kyron. After she leaves the school at 8:45, she went to a Fred Meyer's grocery store to find some Tylenol for Kiara because she had an earache. The first store that she went to did not have any, so she ended up going to a second Fred Meyer store where she was able to get what she needed. She then ran a few other errands like dry cleaning. She went to a craft store. And then she stated she drove around with Kiara for a while so that she could sleep and maybe the car would soothe her Eric. Terry seems like a very social person. She was very involved at the school, part of the PTA, and she was very active at her gym. And so she was a little chatty Cathy with everyone. And she states she was on the phone with various people while she was driving around aimlessly. She didn't even really know where she was going, just kept making turns and driving around. At around 11:40, the mother-daughter duo would stop off at her gym so Terry could work out. Kiara would go to the daycare area while Terry worked out and chatted with her friends for about 45 minutes to an hour. So this gets us to about 12:40 that day. She then got home around 1:20, and she started to post photos of Kyron's science fair on social media. She emailed a few people. I believe she emailed Kyron's teacher asking when she could pick up his project because she would have to borrow Kane's truck again. She emailed Desiree, Kyron's biological mother, the photos and that type of thing. This whole day, they are thinking nothing is amiss. And at 3:30, Kane is already home from work, so the couple take Kiara and make their way to the bus stop to get Kyron and hear all about the rest of his day at school. This day was not just the science fair, but there was also a talent show as well. Kyron wasn't participating. He was a bit shy and timid, but it was going to be a fun event nonetheless.
It's a different day at school because they're not just sitting and learning all day. They're actually doing fun things. They get to present their science fair project. They get to go watch their friends do silly things or show their talents on stage. It's not your typical, you go to math, you go to science, you go to social studies, you go home and do homework.
Exactly. And Kyron absolutely loved science. He was all about it. He was so excited to present his project on the red tree frogs. But Kyron didn't get off the bus. The bus driver told the family that Kyron had not boarded the bus at school. So, of course, right away, Terry calls the school to just see if Kyron was maybe left behind. But the school secretary tells her that Kyron was marked absent that day. I could only imagine the heart-wrenching uncertainty as this information was relayed. As a parent, my heart sinks for this family, just not knowing where your child is. Usually you believe that school is one of the safest places for your child. Well, it used to be anyways, but knowing that you dropped him off and the school doesn't have any record of it is downright terrifying.
Especially if she saw him walking into his classroom. Like, she saw him go up those stairs. She saw him walking down the hallway. She knew he was on campus at some point.
Yes, exactly. I know I've been talking about Terry, the stepmother, her whereabouts that day quite a bit, but I also want to talk about her past before we get into anything else. She was really into fitness, and at one point, she actually competed in a bodybuilding competition. She was buff, to say the least.
Wow.
Yes, she apparently lost 60 pounds in a 2-month period. We all know those bodybuilder types. They don't look like they get that way naturally. Kane would say that Terry was short-tempered during this time. Well, she wasn't eating. That is probably why. I know I get short-tempered.
When you're hangry.
Yes.
And there is a lot of stigma around the bodybuilding community of how they cut that way and how they take everything out of their life that can do anything but make them lean. And yes, you take sugar, you take caffeine, you take all the good stuff, the fat out of my life, I'm not going to be a happy person either.
She would end up coming in 4th for that competition, so she kind of gave up on that after that. It was something that her and Kane had in common. Terry would also receive a DUI for being drunk while driving, and to make it even worse, she had her oldest son in the vehicle. I believe she got some type of child endangerment charge as well. This was years prior to Kyron going missing, but it still kind of plays into the fact that there were already so many issues or things Terry was dealing with. It was reported that she did stop drinking And she did go back to kind of a healthier lifestyle, gaining weight and not being so strict about that by the time Kyron went missing. Terry and Kane were having issues. And like I said earlier, Kane had a habit of cheating on his significant others. And Terry even suspected him of cheating on her. So to say that this was just the tip of the iceberg of their issues. So there's just a lot going on in this family dynamic.
It sounds like there's already embedded trust issues.
Most definitely. But back to what happened after they found out Kyron was not on the school bus. Kane and Terry raced to Skyline Elementary, and they speak with the front office and his teacher when they tell him again that Kyron was marked absent from school that day. Terry wanted to know why they didn't call her. She had her phone with her all day, and that was the typical protocol. She would get an automated call that goes out to parents, letting them know that the child was out of school. Apparently, the system was not working that day. Not only was this system not working, but the system that they had in place for parents to sign in and out while they were visiting, let's say for the science fair, well, that was not enforced that day either because they just had so many extra guests. They could not figure out a way that it would save time to get these parents or visitors on campus. I believe I read that there were somewhere between 300 and 400 extra people on campus that morning.
The fact that they don't even have a list of who could possibly be on campus that day is ridiculous.
Yes. They had a process, but I believe it was, this is 2010, probably just sign your name, what's your kid's name, what time you came in, what time you came out, and that's it. But they didn't even have that day. All the doors were unlocked, which I believe there were 6 or 7 entrances and 0 cameras. So essentially, this is a perfect storm for a child to go missing. So right after they get to the school, police are called. The secretary is then told by the police to call Kyron's biological mother, Desiree. Desiree is remarried and lives about 4 to 5 hours away. So they call her, let her know that Kyron is missing. So then, of course, Desiree calls Terry right away. I was like, what the heck is happening? Where is Kyron? You sent pictures. Obviously, he was at school today because I've seen the pictures. And she's like, I don't know. He's missing and we can't find him. They do a search of the school just to make sure he's not hiding, that he's not somewhere he shouldn't have been or got distracted, that type of thing.
I kind of think of a bullying situation. If he was a shy kid, was he shoved in a locker? Was he, that's kind of where my mind went for a second as well.
Yes, exactly. So they did a whole sweep of the school, found nothing. And this was a Friday afternoon. So police really couldn't speak with Kyron's classmates or all of the school personnel until Monday. But that didn't stop them from searching the area surrounding the school. This is Oregon, and the school was on the outskirts of Portland in a pretty dense forest area. Right around the school, there were hundreds of acres of treacherous terrain. So they just started right away. Now, there is a few hours, obviously, that no one knew that Kyron was missing. But once they knew, this investigation was ramped up immediately. It was insane how many people they had boots on the ground that night. FBI was called in. That weekend, they had 1,300 searchers going through the woods.
Wow.
It was insane how quickly they got everything situated. Desiree would state when she was pulling into town, she either could go one way towards the school or the other way towards Kane's house. And she knew Kane and Terry were already home. And her husband, who is in law enforcement as well, told her just to go to Kane's house, not to go to the school. But they could see like all of the vans and trucks and lights, spotlights at the school where like they essentially made this headquarters looking for Kyron. And I could only imagine if you were the parent thinking that, okay, he's going to be found, that right there would terrify me to have that many people searching and nobody can find him.
But also, it's probably, I don't want to say refreshing, but the fact that they had that much support that early on is amazing.
That's true as well. Like, it's scary to think, oh my God, all these people are here and they still can't find him. But it's also, I'm so grateful that there are this many people. Yes, valid point there. Police start interviewing who they are able to, and Kyron's teacher had something weird to say. She told authorities that Terry told her she was taking Kyron to the doctor, so he wouldn't be there that day. Terry says she never said that, and the doctor's appointment was actually the next week, not that day. Police confirmed with the doctor that the appointment was in fact a week later, and of course, they didn't see Kyron at all that day. So did the teacher misunderstand? Was it another kid? But Terry was so involved in the school. She knew all of the staff, all of the teachers, most of the parents. So would it be likely that the teacher got Terry mixed up with someone else and was like, oh, it really was a different parent that mentioned that? Very strange.
Or maybe it was just a miscommunication of, oh, Kyron has a doctor appointment next week, but her youngest had an ear infection at the time. Did she suggest, hey, maybe she needs to go to the doctor, or I'm trying to ward off this earache before we have to go to the doctor, and all the information just jumbled together where there was like I misheard it. Obviously, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people around that day. I can easily see where the information processed incorrectly in my brain, because that's happened to me before.
Oh, exactly. And with that many kids, totally understandable. Yeah. And Terry would go on the record and say, if I did take him, I would have to sign him out of the office. Like the normal protocol. However, this day, nobody was watching, so it wouldn't be completely out of the realm where she could just walk out and nobody would know either.
Or she did sign him out and the paperwork got lost somewhere. It got dropped in the trash can in the kerfuffle of science fair.
Exactly. The PTA president, she would state to law enforcement that she saw Terry and Kyron in front of his science project that morning. And the two spoke, and they were able to confirm Terry and Kyron were both there while they were taking that picture. And actually, another picture was taken with one of Kyron's friends. So, like, multiple people are seeing Kyron there that morning. So that is not up for debate. Kyron was there for sure in the morning with Terry. It's just what happened after is the big mystery.
Did he have the opportunity to present his science fair project? Do the science fair judges remember seeing him?
So no. By 10 o'clock is when school technically was supposed to start for that day. There was reports that there were going to be parents that led the kids around to look at all the other science fair projects. But Terry had to leave because of Kiara's earache. She didn't want to stay, but she was just like, oh, Kyron will be fine with one of these other parents. So she leaves and school doesn't start till 10. So she just sees Kyron going into his classroom. She's assuming that he's going to meet up with one of the other groups and start making the rounds. However, no one has confirmation of Kyron after Terry sent him off into his classroom. So Terry had taken a few photos of Kyron that morning with his science fair project about the red tree frogs. And that is like the number one picture that's circulated on the internet. Authorities knew exactly what Kyron was wearing that day. He was wearing black cargo pants and a black CSI t-shirt. I believe he was wearing orange tennis shoes, if I'm not mistaken, and then his wire frame glasses that he always wore. One of my favorite brand new true crime podcasts is called The Survivor Squad, with Collier Landry and Tara Newell, who are both survivors themselves. Tara, the brave survivor who fought back and killed her attacker, Dirty John Meehan, and Collier, the courageous young man who stood up to his father in court for killing his mother. The pair shared their personal journeys and insights as they navigate the world of true crime. It amazes me how they can connect with their guests and provide a compassionate and empathetic platform for survivor stories.
Tara and Collier are committed to presenting true crime stories in an ethical manner. Knowing what it feels like for the media to take your story and put it out in the world, Tara and Collier's new show provides the platform for the survivor to control the narrative. The goal is to empower and humanize survivors while making the true crime space a better place for them. You can listen to the Survivor Squad anywhere you get your podcasts.
Another parent told local news station that she knew Kyron and that he was a very timid little boy and that he would never walk away on his own. However, to contradict that completely is the fact that the school lost track of Kyron twice since he started attending back in kindergarten. He was a second grader at this point. Once they found him on a soccer field, he got distracted and just went out there. The other one, he ended up staying too long in a bathroom and they didn't know where he was at, and they ended up finding him in a bathroom later on. And that's the thing about this case. For every solid witness statement or thing that we feel we know for sure, there was always another one that will go against it completely. And I feel like it's so frustrating because you're like, oh, we know this for sure, but then we really don't know that for sure because there's another thing. There are witness statements that say they saw Kyron leave with Terry, but then there are other statements that say they saw Kyron by himself after Terry left. And I'm just like, which one is it? They all cannot be correct. When they couldn't locate Kyron anywhere around the school, they knew he wasn't hiding anywhere. A mass text went out to the entire school district alerting them that Kyron was missing, and if they had seen him, to please contact authorities immediately. The 7-year-old boy seemed to vanish in thin air, and police had zero leads to where he might be. The FBI got involved quickly, and like I said, they had 1,300 searchers and dogs out scouring the dense woods behind the school for any sign of little sweet Kyron. If anything turned up, authorities have kept a tight lid on it. Okay, so Desiree was married to a police detective in the Medford, Oregon area. So once they got into town in the Portland area and were speaking with Kane and Terry, he told the family to get ready for their lives to be an open book. He continued to say that they will be interviewed and scrutinized and nothing would be private any longer. He would go on record and state that most of the family got on board and had no problem with this. Anything to find Kyron. Everyone except Terry. He would state that she didn't want to be interviewed and she didn't want her life to be aired out. And she made a few disgruntled statements about the whole process of everything. Take it from a mother that actually had a child go missing, even though it was a very short period of time. I would have done anything, given anything, and made anything and everything available to the police in hopes of finding my son. So it's very strange that Terry was nonchalant about Kyron being missing in the first place. Desiree and her husband would state she was playing hostess. As soon as they came in, do you guys want something to eat? Do you want something to drink? While they had this task force in their house. They just felt it was very weird of Terry to be like that and then not wanting her personal information to be out in the open. It is strange that this was reported about Terry, considering she was more of a mother, parent, and caregiver than any of the other three parents. She's the one that spent 95% of the time with Kyron. Now, is this just hearsay? Remember, Desiree did not like Terry, so was it already in her mind that Terry was the person responsible for her son going missing? Were they already scrutinizing and examining everything that she said and it was taken out of context? I don't think we'll ever truly know, but from hour one, Desiree and her husband had suspicion on Terry. Of course, the family was the first to be looked at. Remember, there are 4 parents, this blended family. You got the biological mom and dad, and then you have the stepmom and the stepdad. All of them went through interviews and polygraph tests. Kane, Desiree, and her husband all had airtight alibis. They were at work 4 or 5 hours away. Kane was also at work. But Terry had about an hour where she was driving around with her daughter that was technically unaccounted for. They did verify from the stores and the gym that she went to, so they knew that time frame of Terry's, but then they still had a little bit of time that they didn't know about. She also failed the polygraph test twice.
Interesting.
But remember, I also said for every bit of evidence, we also have something that slightly contradicts it or explains it away. Well, Terry had hearing issues, and I believe she couldn't hear out of one ear at all. This is why she taught Kyron, like all those years ago, sign language when he was a baby. Apparently, having a hearing disability could make a person fail a test at a higher rate. And she would say that the person administering the test was behind her, so she couldn't even read his lips like she normally would, which is why she failed it, or why she states she failed it.
Which that could happen. I can see how there could be some miscommunication there.
Yes, and if you think you hear it and you're like nervous because you're like, I really hope that's what they said, but it might not be, then that makes your adrenaline spike, which could give you a false reading. Obviously, suspicion was put on Terry right away for obviously many reasons. But then something happened that was like out of a movie. Police asked Terry if she was in contact with anyone that was strange or had a possible vendetta against her or the family. And she couldn't think of anyone except for a man she recently hired as a lawn guy, a guy to do their lawn maintenance. She kept this a secret, even hiring this guy from Kane, because he wouldn't want her to spend the money on it when she could be doing the yard work herself. Like I said, they had issues. It seems like they both had a lot of secrets they kept from each other.
Well, why couldn't he do the lawn? Why does it have to be her responsibility?
I had read a few reports that he was very controlling and he would give her like a list of chores to do daily. And since she was the stay-at-home mom and he was the sole breadwinner, that she needed to do the chores that he said. He was also very controlling with money, is what I read in a few places. So yard work was one of her job requirements. She kept this landscaper. She didn't have enough time to get the lawn work done. So she hired someone, kept it quiet. But this guy, she would state, was hitting on her, and she turned him down. He didn't take this rejection kindly, let's say. But she also kept this a secret from Kane as well, because she didn't want him to be upset that now this guy is hitting on her and she had to reject him and all this other stuff. She told the police that's the only person that she's had like an altercation with in the last few months. And that was basically it. Police track down this man, of course, because they are going to go after every single lead they possibly get. And what he had to say was vastly different than what Terry had told police. He stated that he did not hit on Terry, but Terry asked him to murder Kane. And this all happened.
That escalated quickly.
I'm like, it's out of a movie. It's absolutely, the drama is insane. So this happened about 7 months before Kyron went missing. Obviously, this guy did not commit the murder, or they didn't work out the deal. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, that's what he said. He would state that Terry told him Kane was abusing her and that she needed to get away, and the only way she could was if he was dead. So they brought this statement to Kane, and of course he freaked out, rightly so. He had no idea Terry was angry at him to begin with. This angry at him just sent him over the edge, was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, can you imagine a police officer coming to you and being like, hey, did you know that your wife has a murder for hire plot against you? What? Excuse me, what?
Yes. And that just makes her seem even more guilty for the disappearance of Kyron, because she's obviously crazy.
A little bit unhinged, at the very least.
Yes. Kane immediately files for divorce. This is all happening probably a week or two after Kyron has disappeared. Kane is filing for divorce. He gets a restraining order against Terry, and he files for full sole custody of Kiara, and he is granted it, even though, technically Terry's never been charged or convicted of anything. Kane is still granted sole custody of their daughter. Terry obviously says this is a complete lie and that this landscaper is only saying this because she turned him in, and it's kind of like he did it and he's talking bad about me because I did it, and it's just back and forth. I have some serious thoughts about all of this. First, these people live a soap opera life, and poor little Kyron, he's just adorable in the middle of it. Second, I believe it would be super dumb of Terry to essentially point out a man that could easily turn on her for this murder for hire job. Let's just say she was responsible for Kyron's disappearance. If she was smart enough to hide Kyron and make him disappear, this seems absolutely insane that she would lead police right to a man she conspired with to commit murder. That just seems insane that she would do that. But maybe she was looking for any scapegoat, and I don't know.
Panic moment, and a panic moment was oh, here is an opportunity of another person that we could get the heat off of me. But at the same time, I mean, it does have kind of a scorned lover feel to it of, I hit on her, she rejected me, so I'm going to make up this whole situation so that it looks bad on her because I didn't get what I wanted.
Exactly. I'm just I don't know who to believe here.
And there's no way, unless there is, text message evidence, there's no way to prove any of this. This is all he said, she said, extravagant storytelling nonsense.
Exactly. Because it's elaborate lies from someone. I just don't know who.
Yes.
Police actually had this landscaper get wired up and go on an undercover mission type of thing to speak with Terry about the money for the murder for hire, to kind of get her to try to confess. Terry didn't take the bait, though. She was adamant. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You are unhinged. So I'm like, did they really expect this? Right after she essentially threw him under the bus, now he comes walking back into her life saying, oh, yeah, what about the money? It just seems so weird.
Yeah. Could you please talk about this situation really close to me? Yes. I'm standing nearby.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just what in the world? Maybe it was smoother than this, but it seems like a fumble, if I'm being honest.
And this is very much, I feel like this is a movie. Are you telling me a movie plot? Is this real?
I wish I was. I do want to mention, just so everyone is clear, Terry has never been officially named as a suspect by police. There was a judge that did state Terry was a suspect at one time. Obviously, Terry and Kane have went through the divorce proceedings, so they have been in front of judges many, many times. And there was one particular judge that said Terry is most definitely the prime suspect in Kyron's disappearance. Police have never said that, but Kane and Desiree have told media many, many times that they believe without a shadow of a doubt that Terry knows what happened to Kyron and that she is responsible for his disappearance. Police were actively pursuing Terry, so much so that they searched the house of one of Terry's friends. This was a lady by the name of Dee Dee. She was a gym friend of Terry's, and they ended up moving in together after the divorce, and as everything was going on, I'm sure Terry needed help financially. They were pretty close. But this lady was apparently unaccounted for at work. She worked at some kind of flower field or a nursery of some kind of plant place where they had to go out into fields. And her boss had requested her up for something on the day that Kyron had went missing, and they couldn't find her for about a 90-minute period, even though her car was still in the parking lot. I don't think she could ever explain this away. However, it was different times than when Terry was unaccounted for. Terry was unaccounted for this hour, but then the friend Dee Dee was unaccounted for a different time frame on that particular day.
Did they connect? Was it Terry had disappeared from like 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And then this other girl was from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Just completely different.
It was just completely different.
Okay.
But they were like scrutinizing this lady as well because they figured Terry would have had to have help in order for this to be orchestrated. This lady has been interviewed. She even was part of the grand jury indictment, had to testify, and was, if I thought she had something to do with this, I would never protect her, type of thing. I don't think you could get a friend to help you cover up the murder of a child.
Unless you have something very heavily weighted against them, there's no way. There is no way anyone in their right mind would be like, absolutely, I will help you hide your dead child's body.
Exactly. A man came forward a few weeks after Kyron went missing and informed police that Terry was sexting him. This man was an old friend of Kane's, and this sparked all new controversy over the fact that Terry should have been a mess. She was trying to get laid by a man that was not her husband. A few years after Kyron had went missing, Desiree and Kane both went on the Dr. Phil show. They tried to get Terry on at that point, but she would not go on. It was about 6 years later that she actually went on the Dr. Phil show. I wanted to see what she had to say, and they actually read out all these text messages, and I'm like, oh my God, they're cringe-worthy.
So it's true sexting. It's not like he read into some flirting.
Oh, no. This is,
And
real
this is
sexting.
This is before the divorce is final.
Yeah, this is just a couple weeks after Kyron went missing. I mean, Kane had already filed for divorce.
Yeah, because it was all very quickly.
Very quick. I know I've been going on about like everything that makes Terry look super suspicious, but here are what leads people off of Terry for being a suspect. Terry and Kiara entered the first store just a few minutes after leaving the school. Literally just enough time to leave the school, go to the store. That is it. They are on surveillance video. It's just the two of them. So did she leave Kyron in the car while she went in? And if he was still alive at this point, that would leave a wide open time for him to be seen by another person, which he wasn't. And this is like 8:45, 9 o'clock on a Friday at a huge grocery store chain. I can't imagine if there was a 7-year-old in a vehicle that no one would see him. Did she do something with him on the way to the store? It doesn't seem like there would be enough time, but then again, who knows?
She was in the pickup, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a pickup truck, so there's no way that she could say, sorry, you have to get in the trunk, which would be a quick situation given the time frame that she has to get from the school to the store. Or if someone saw him in the vehicle, he'd be in the seat. There's not really any other place for him to be.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. And is this lady even smart enough to get away with this type of crime, considering she has been scrutinized since day one and has not cracked? Remember, this is the largest investigation in Oregon history. We are talking some very experienced people looking into every single aspect of literally everything. I just feel like she would be caught unless they know stuff and they just can't prove it because Kyron has never been found. That is the thing that makes this so horrible because they have nothing physical.
And I feel like, how old was Kiara again?
She was like 18 months.
So not where she could really verbalize if she did see, like she couldn't say, yeah, Kyron was with us all day, or she wouldn't be able to provide any sort of additional information.
She would not. What could have happened to 7-year-old Kyron? What are the other theories in this case? I don't even believe that these are theories. These are just possibilities. There was a man that asked a member of the Skyline Elementary staff if there was a student that could help him unload some stuff from his vehicle. Could this child that was selected to go help, could that have been Kyron? They don't know what kid was sent. They just are like, oh, yeah, some guy needed some help. Or they could have unloaded it and it just been done and over with and they didn't pay any attention. Or could this guy have taken a child? They don't know who this guy was. Considering the school was a free-for-all, anyone could have been walking around scouring the place for the perfect child to abduct. There was big signs saying, all are welcome. We're having a science fair. Just walk right in kind of thing. So was there a local sex offender? Was this a perfect opportunity for someone to go take a child? Another theory was that there were 2 men that were on the maintenance team of the school that would eventually, in the years later, be arrested for crimes against children. I'm just sure that these people were questioned at length, considering they had direct access to Kyron. I'm sure every employee of that school was heavily interviewed and checked out. I would assume so, at least.
I would hope so.
FBI did their usual suspect profile thing, and it didn't line up with Terry. They said, based on their analysis, that the person that took Kyron was most likely a male in his early 40s. Since Kyron has went missing, Terry has not had a clean record, which does not look well for her. She was arrested in California for driving a stolen vehicle. She had a gun charge against her when she stole a roommate's gun out of a safe. She also had a domestic violence incident where a man stated she threatened him with a knife. This man identified himself as Terry's ex-boyfriend, and he ended up filing a restraining order against her. So it seems like Terry has some anger issues at the very least, and is not concerned for others' well-being. I don't even know, and I hate it when there's no answer. I mean, obviously, everything points to Terry. It's just how? How would Terry have done this? There is a Facebook page called Missing Kyron Horman. It has, still to this day, daily posts and updates about fundraisers and random pictures of this sweet little boy who would be a grown man now. There is a $50,000 reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction of the individual responsible for Kyron's disappearance. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Multnomah County Sheriff Office by calling 503-823-3333. Now, there are tons of documentaries, YouTube videos, blogs, and forums out there about Kyron. Even though this is a lengthy episode, there's still a lot. Do a deep dive, go down that rabbit hole, because possibly someone out there will eventually figure out what happened to Kyron.
When they did the searches, I think, like my mind's kind of thinking as far as theories go, could he have walked off from the school? And Oregon being what it is, there is a lot of predators that live in these woods. Did they have anything did dogs smell it? Which, I mean, I can't imagine the smells that a dog can get from a school. There's all kinds of smells out there with all those kids. But anything, or they think that he was just taken from the school, that's the last place that they found anything?
No, they believe he could have walked off. They were not able to get like a scent tracking for sure he went this way type of thing, considering how many people were at that school that day. So they have literally done searches all the way up to this year. It's just thousands of acres. And Kyron was a little boy, and by now there would barely be anything left of him.
Sure.
Adventures with Purpose has done searches in the various, I think there's a river that actually goes to the ocean. There's various ponds. One thing that I didn't mention was Kyron's backpack and coat were left in his homeroom class. There, for sure he was there, but after that they have no clue.
Wow.
It's such a mystery, and that is Oregon.
Wow. Audio work on today's episode. Just by listening to our content, you too are advocating for justice for these families. Thank you for making a difference in their lives as well.
We want to share a few ways you can support us to continue our mission. You can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $5 per month, or a simple rate and review on your favorite podcast platform helps us get in front of someone who may know something.
We will continue to shed a light on the forgotten victims, untangle the webs of deceit, and examine the eerie coincidences that make these cases so compelling.
We believe that working together can affect change and create a world where victims are heard, justice is served, and communities are empowered to make a difference, no matter where or who they are.